Oh, you got it. At least that one, I didn't know.
Came back.
Yeah. Where'd you go? It is long. I think we're gonna go, I have to have some friends that live on Crystal. And I think we're gonna tomorrow. That's still 5 hours. Yeah. Rosie, I've never been. You have to go across the ferry. Oh.
Did you print them? Okay.
I tried.
I'm glad you came back. I'm ready to go again.
It was nice to get out too.
Yeah.
I've been here for years. Been
Big side day.
It's been a big Saturday. But I don't know, whenever there's something like a big project like this, I get anxious to get it started. So I'm excited to start the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, so much better. What a difference.
Yeah, Amanda noticed that the font defaulted on the budget calendar and it looked like a kindergarten handout or something.
Yeah. It was just, it looked like a strange transition.
Yeah, it is.
It didn't look very,
Maybe they needed that.
Amanda
it
goes,
looks very Leslie.
yeah.
See, good counsel.
She goes, this looks like my kids made it.
Hi. How are you doing?
Beach bum. Well, the beach I went to was like in the low 60s. Can you believe it? Yeah,
Where were you?
Oregon.
Oh, beautiful though.
It was beautiful, you're right, but oh my gosh, not my idea of a beach thing. We didn't go there for the beach, obviously. Golf, I'll give you one guess, yeah. Okay.
We need like an on. Alert.
Yes.
I don't know.
Probably fine.
I don't. I usually ride around with him and like read a book or something. Amanda'd be so proud of me to read a book. But there, you don't ride unless you're handicapped. So I said, see you later. You know, I'm not going to walk 4 hours. So on the second day, I caught him on the last 9 though, and I walked that in his beautiful course because it's right there on the beach, you know, and
What's
It's-
the name of it? The Scott plays once a week.
Bandon Dunes.
What's the first word?
Bandon,
Bandit.
Mhm. yeah, it's supposed to be like ranked way up there, you know, so.
Oh, yeah. Like once, how often do you play?
As often as he can. Of course, he has to work through the week, so it's just a weekend thing unless, you know, we're vacationing, so. You know, on our bucket list, I don't know if I tell everybody. On our bucket list, we want to go to all the states eventually. So that was one more state just to check off. And when we go, we like to, he likes to go golf and I just like to do stuff.
Chicken steak.
Right.
Okay, I've got control of it over here, so if I see y'all do this,
Okay.
I'm wearing a sweater, so
That's
I'm wet. I'm
you may have to
ready.
share.
I'm not sharing.
Do I?
Copies of all that. It was like, oh.
That's all right. Somebody needs to take care of it. What?
Well, is it something you think that? You can vote it up. Okay. I agree with that. Right. I can go to that. instead of changing.
So right now, we're at.
Yeah.
What I had,
We'll let you get
so, what they coming into it, they project. Afternoon,
Good morning.
they projected it somewhere between 20.
Dan's too serious, I'm leaving.
So.
You got a test.
Well, I like it.
It is. This is cool. What they-
Hi, ladies.
all-
Hi, how are you doing?
Have that here as a-
I'm a lady too. I'm
That's why I said that first.
All state and state.
Oh, goodness. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I'm officially
Okay.
done with A&A pickup and van. I'm cleaned up, I'm out.
And just,
New owners.
So they should have some sort of, motivated right. They just have it on the days, they have construction fires. Big collector. For our customers, they were about
Yeah.
The fire department set up a bill for $75,000. They asked us to do it, so I got the bill. Research. Job. Back with them. That bill cheap. Bill, blah, blah, blah. I said, I recommend.
but I mean,
Just base that off of what they asked. This one.
I'm gonna say that.
But it was. Yeah, so it comes back and goes, oh, well, I talked to him, we'll settle for 55. Buddy, they'll see. Yeah. Hey, that's not gonna work.
No.
Come on in, have a seat. How are you?
Hi, Amanda.
Probably you're about September 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do this. I don't know what that is yet. I'm talking with the mayor director.
Yeah.
You'd like to come out and say anything, say everything, so I talked to the mayor about. It's great. Anyway.
Yeah, I like it.
bad repair. And all the breaking marble and stuff. Like, it has,
Right.
it all makes. Yeah. They can see all.
The time.
Yeah.
They were playing something for some
You would
school.
never.
Play some stuff.
I mean, when you answer, I was like,
He said, actually, no, he said, I don't know. So he's checking on that. He got somebody else. Carlson said, downside was backpacks. Can't talk.
Yeah. One.
No, you didn't. Yeah, that's Saturday, that's a good Saturday. Saturday morning at 8. 7, whatever. I was out there the other day, and I'll probably. That's a great part. So, yeah, Halloween. That's what I don't. That's how we see it.
Yeah.
Yes. Get any invite or anything?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Did you get your, that means.
That's all you want to share.
Found it and then it was gone again. And I was like, oh no. Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah.
Holy. Yeah.
My phone randomly calls people at times. No, I tell you, oh, I'd like to call the special meeting for the city of Kennedale to order at 5:30 PM on August 10th, 2021. Just a reminder that all requests to speak forms must be turned in at this time if you wish to speak on any item on the agenda. May I have a roll call, please?
Jan Joplin. Gary Mitchell.
Here.
Julie Jacobson. Not here yet. I did not know if she's not coming or not. There she is, Julie Jacobson.
Oh, present.
Mayor Linda Rhodes,
Present.
James Connor.
Here.
Okay, all present. We have council place number 4 still vacant at this time. At this time, we'd like to start the work session. Item number 1 is to discuss the fiscal year 21-22 budget calendar and timeline. Ms. Lakita, Director of Finance, you can come up and this is your item. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item 1 and item 2 kind of run in together. I believe you've seen this budget calendar before, but it just kind of gives us some landmark dates and some of the statutory dates that we need to set and to be available to adopt our tax rate in our budget for this year. So unless you have any specific questions about the calendar, it's actually intertwined in with the presentation, so I can go ahead and start on that if you like.
Just a quick question for
Okay.
Rosie. Do we have anyone that has signed up for this item number?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so we can go to the next item, which is the overview of revenue projections and tax rate calculations from the finance director.
Mayor and Council, this evening, we're gonna take a preliminary look at our current year general fund budget projections for revenue and expenditures. Kind of take a look at what we planned and where we project to be by the end of September. We're gonna look at some fiscal year 21-22 revenue projections by category. We're gonna look at tax rate information. We're going to look at pretty detailed new program requests from departments. I believe some of the council members wanted to hear from department heads directly, so we're going to do that for their respective departments. We're going to also take a quick look at the budget calendar and timeline again, and just to verify some of the dates and council's availability. And then we're going to talk about your input and what your objectives might be for the fiscal year 21-22 budget. So we start off by looking at the general fund revenue projections, and these are the projections for the current year. So as you can see, our amended budget was 7.6 million on revenue, okay? Our 2020-2021 projections are 8.1 million. And you can kind of go line by line and look at the differences to see kind of what projections change. We are anticipating a bit more revenue on sales tax, which is great. We far exceeded our licensing and permit revenue. So this year was kind of a landmark year for that because of Hammock Creek and continued development in Magnolia Hills. So 467,000 is where we project to end, maybe even slightly more than that. The other thing that increased were charge for services. You know, this has been a year of COVID, and ambulance fees actually is what drove that up this year. So we're looking pretty good there. Not much other change there. Mainly it's the development and the sales tax that helped us out this year on revenue. Okay, on the expenditure side, the amended budget was 8.4 million, and we project to end the year at 8.7 million. You can see the changes for each department. I kind of highlighted some. Police were over a little bit because we had the chief of police departed this year. And upon his retirement, we had employee benefits that were due. Police department also received a grant this year, so they I can't remember what they bought. Simulator, yes. They received grant money this year, so you'll see that coming out on the expenditure side, but you'll also see that it came in on the revenue side, so they didn't really go over. Community development as well. You know, when we get all of that extra revenue, we still have to pay out because we contract out our inspector services. So we have a contract with Safe Built, so we had to pay them, you know, significantly more this year, but we also got more on the revenue side as well. So budget 8.4 million, we plan to end at 8.7 million. So what does that do for the fund balance? When we amended the budget earlier in the year, we looked at the revenues and expenditures. As you can see, we had a planned drawdown on the fund balance of 742,000. Okay, that will put us at 20.3% fund balance. And as you can remember, according to our policy, we're always striving for around 18%. And so we were pleased to know that by the end of the fiscal year 20 audit, we ended in a really good position, fairly better than where we thought. And so the new budget reflected a 20.3% fund balance, even though we were drawing it down. And now with the projection, we're looking to actually not draw it down quite as much. So we're looking at a 563,000 drawdown, which gives us 21% fund balance. So we're looking to end the year 2021 in a much better place. So if we go over to fiscal year 22, let's look at these revenue projections here. Total big picture revenue projection right now, we're looking at 7.8 million. And you can see how that's broken out by category. Of course, our largest revenue source is going to be property tax and then followed by sales tax. And you can see the progression down from there. And then on the next page, you can kind of see it broken down a little bit better by category. Property tax at 4.8 million, and we'll talk about the rates and how that correlates over to this actual projection in just a second. Sales tax that we're projecting for fiscal year 22, you know, sales tax is always one of those things we can budget. We don't really know where it's going to end. Depends on the economy. We looked at it last year. We thought that it would probably go down because of COVID. It ended up going up. Now Delta variant is here. We don't know what that's going to do, but what we did, we just went ahead and plugged in a 4% increase over projection. And I think that's safe. I wouldn't want to go much over that. I've seen in the past where we've gotten 5%, and I've seen where we've gotten 2%. So right now we plugged in a 4% increase in sales tax. Everything else, you can kind of follow down. If you have any specific questions, we can kind of go further into those. License and permits, of course, we're not going to see the 400,000 that we saw this year. I guess we could, but with the vacancy in that department, you know, that will be something later in the year. If we're able to project more, once we see what development's going to do, we can go in and do a budget amendment on that. But right now, I think it'd be best to play that safe and do more of a, you know, a 3 to 4 year average of what we normally bring in for development. So I set that at 184,000 for now. Let's see what else. Everything else just kind of follows its natural progression with inflation and things like that. So 7.8 million. Then if you go over to the general fund expenditure forecast, you see 9.4 million. You're like, wow, okay, that jumped up. We know that we have, when we did the budget amendment, we implemented pay plans for public safety, and for a while, we had discontinued those plans. So with the budget amendment, we re-implemented them, and the plan is to continue them over into the next budget cycle. There was a salary survey done, and you guys saw the presentation on that. HR had determined that with the budget amendment, I believe it got everyone closer to market, 80 to 90% of market. And so the plan is to continue that over into fiscal year 22. So some of the increases that you see compared to fiscal 21 to 22 continues with those salary adjustments that were put into place with that budget amendment. Okay, so if you look down, you can see just that, really that natural progression. And what will happen is each year we have an insurance increase as well. I don't think those rates are in just yet, those final rates, but we expect our insurance rates to increase at least 10% this year. So I've plugged in a 10% increase in that. So what you see in this expenditure forecast already includes that as well.
I do have a question, sorry.
Sure.
You said what has been re-implemented that you factored into this?
The public safety step plans. So. Now, if you look on this slide, that very last section where it says new program requests, that's what you're going to be looking at this evening. You're going to hear from each department and what they're kind of desiring for next year's budget, what they feel like their needs are for their budget. When we went and tallied and totaled and kind of met with everybody, you see that number included there, the 481,945. Okay, so the 9.4 million includes that. Now, we're not saying that that's what's going to be proposed next week, not at all. And you'll kind of see why as we kind of go through and talk more, but we do want to give the departments an opportunity to come and show you what they feel like it is that they need and to show you this number that we have initially. So just be prepared. We probably will have to work our way down from that number depending on what we want to do with the tax rate. Okay, so let's look at any potential factors that may impact the revenue. Remember, we were talking about 7.8 million in revenue. What may impact that? Taxable values this year came in at 5.7% above current. That is an increase over what increased last year. Last year was more like a 3%. So this is getting us a little bit closer to what we're used to. We had gotten to a place, really probably most of the North Texas cities, where we were used to seeing 6 and 7% every year. So last year was a surprise for us. Dropped down to 3%. This year, we're kind of back up a little bit. So we went from 802 million to 848 million on our taxable values, okay? Your tax rate calculation is on the city website, and you can see what that calculation produced this year. So our current tax rate, of course, is 77 cents. The no new revenue rate, which was the old effective rate, what they called it, is 75%. Okay, the effective rate is the rate that's going to give you the same amount of revenue that you got in the prior year, taking into account your new assessed valuation. And then we have the voter approval rate, which is the old rollback rate. That is the rate that we cannot exceed without, more noticing and more approval. And then, of course, that with Senate Bill 2, they introduced a de minimis rate. And our city is one that qualifies to calculate a de minimis rate. And what that does is it gives small cities a break from that 3.5% cap that Senate Bill 2 put on us. So it gives smaller cities an opportunity to get up to an extra 500,000 in revenue, as long as your population is under 30,000. So that's why you see that listed there. In conversations and just meetings, I know that the council is probably not interested in going up to that point. If that's something that the council does want to do, we will talk about that, because there is extra noticing and things that are associated with going up to a rate like that. But this is the meat of what determines, our revenue for next year. So, no new revenue rate, 75%, voter approval, 78%, current rate, 77 cents. Any other potential factors impacting revenue? And sales tax is fluid, it changes. Of course, we'll just have to kind of see where we end there. The 1.7 million is what we're budgeting. And then for permits and fees, we don't probably expect to have a landmark year like this year and bring in over 400,000. We would love to, but it depends on the staffing and also the consensus among the council as to what development we're willing to bring into Kennedale. So we'll see where that one goes. But that is definitely, these are three definite factors that are gonna impact the revenue. So new program requests. I am not gonna go into everything because the departments are gonna tell you what it is that they're wanting, but total across all funds, we only had 2 funds that submitted requests. Several departments within the general fund and also streets had a request before Larry left, but we can look at what was requested in that department as well. And then I just kind of included, the breakdown. They're going to explain to you what these things are, what they mean to them, why they feel like they need them. Fire department requested 166,000. The police department requested 209,000. The library has requested 86,000 and human resources requested 20,000. So again, these are all just enhancements, new programs. Leslie, I'm sure is going to be taking her time in going through these and figuring out, what the dire needs are before considering including them in the budget for next presentation for next Tuesday. So. And then streets has a lot of needs, you can see. Prior Public Works Director submitted over 273,000 worth of needs. I'm going to cover some of the needs for some of the departments who don't have department heads, but I'm not versed in this stuff. So I guess at some point we'll be able to speak with some of the staff who stepped in to fill those roles temporarily to kind of see, what do we just need, and what can wait. So with that, let's just look at the next steps. So we kind of began this process, of course, back at the end of May, just querying the departments to see where did they think they were going to end with their budgets and what they thought they needed this year. That's brought us up till now. So August and September, pretty much meetings every Tuesday. That's how it normally is. But the key meeting is next Tuesday. And that will be the actual presentation of the city manager's proposed budget. And that is where we will see what tax rate she recommends and also what final expenditures and revenue she proposes. And then I asked for 2 other meetings, and I thought that since we kind of got a late start this year, we may want 1 or 2 additional chances to talk more about whatever we discuss on next Tuesday. And so we have an opportunity to do a meeting on the 24th and a meeting on August 31st. And those will be special meetings if needed. And then, of course, we had to have our public hearings on the budget, public hearing on the budget. Now, according to Senate Bill 2, we do not need 2 hearings on the tax rate. So there will be 1 hearing on the tax rate. Those both hearings are scheduled for September 15th. And after that, we will plan on adopting the budget and then the tax rate on September 21st. The absolute last day to adopt the budget is September 30th. So I believe technically, and I'll have to get with Drew on that, but I believe technically we will have up until that time, but we got to be careful about the time in between our hearings and our adoption and everything like that. So I know that we're safe on the 21st. So we'll plan on adopting the budget and the tax rate on that date at our regular meeting. And also at that meeting will be where we will be considering the adoption of the ordinance issuing the 6 million that we spoke about at the last meeting. So with that, I believe that takes us. You have any questions about that part before we go into bringing up the department heads?
We'll start with Councilmember Joplin.
I'm going to hold my questions for a while. Thank you.
Gary?
No question.
I do just briefly, as far as everything that's going to be covered under the bond that we spoke about, how much of that is factored into the numbers you've gone over today, or are they all completely separate?
They're all completely separate.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
James?
Just a couple of questions, actually. Now, with the, with resignations that have been happening this year, unfortunately, is there any unrealized savings from that, and are they being factored in as well?
They are being factored in, but also, and the answer to that is yes, but they're kind of washing themselves out because we have employee benefits that we have to pay for some of those longer tenure staff members who've left. So some of those payouts have been significant, so.
Okay. I think that's the only question I'm gonna have right now. Reserve the rest for later.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any questions at this time. I'm eager to hear from each department head. Did you have anything additional to add to the presentation?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. So I guess then with that, then we'll go to the next item. Presentation by directors of budget overviews and new program requests for each department.
Okay, someone may have to
Did
help
you
me
want
find
to
these.
start on that?
Yes,
And then
I'm actually going to start.
You're gonna go first, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're starting with the one that's the least thrilling, so we'll all aim to move through these pretty quickly, but please stop me if you have questions. You all know what my office does, documents all of the laws and contracts that we have. The Office of Communication runs the social media, the website. This year, we don't have that many, we didn't have any events. We didn't have a lot to really discuss. So, I completed my TRMC, my certification, and started towards my MPA. But we did finally implement live streaming of council meetings. So I'm excited that we have that now. This is just an overview of the various responsibilities for my office, which you're all pretty familiar with. And the staffing right here, me. So, and the short-term goals, just to continue to grow our online subscribers, social media presence. I would like to move to where all of our board and commission meetings are also being live streamed and fed to YouTube. So we'll work on that. And then most of the others just regular maintenance, like training staff and the board members on, Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act, records retention, things like that. So long-term goals are to develop brand standards and increase our communications. We don't have any policies or procedure manuals for my office. I'd like to see those created. Then the accuracy and consistency of municipal code in all publications at all times. Right now, one of the things we struggle with is that the UDC is a separate document from the code. And so I want to get the UDC into MuniCode so that there's one place to go for everything. So we'll work on what that might look like. And then our Laserfiche document storage system. My office uses it a lot, but I'd like to see it used more citywide because it's a good resource to have. I didn't do any requests for this year. Some things that I know that we're going to need or that you can hire firms to come in and go through your files and digitize them, put them in a Laserfiche. I think that would be a great thing to do at some point for our historical documents. And then travel and training budget to maintain my certification. And I believe we have one single AC unit. We have 5 at City Hall, and I think there's 1 left that we haven't replaced. So we're hoping to get through 1 more year with that. This is just an overview of my budget. And then this is the proposal. So you'll see we have gone up a little bit. Most of the increases are just annual escalations for services. We added in the subscriptions for Zoom and different things like that that were not budgeted in the last fiscal year, but. No. Right. It's about $6,000, right? And some of that, I went up on building maintenance a little bit because it seems like that we have overextended that line item pretty regularly in the past few years. So I went up 2,500 on that. And then our office equipment software, there's a little bit in there for Zoom and then in a subscription to like Dropbox and Adobe that we added in the past year with more people doing telework. So. And what else went up? Nothing exciting. Right. No, I love the job. There's just nothing exciting in my numbers.
Do any other council members have any questions for Leslie? James? In the last budget, we had to cut training. And I know that this was one of the items that you brought up for this time was to maintain your certification. And that's important when an employee gains a certificate or a certification in their field that they have, and it's important for them to maintain that. Looking at some of these proposed numbers, is that correct?
Well,
Because there's not a lot there.
I know
mean,
there's enough for about 1 seminar in the
Okay.
coming year. Because I will be finishing up with my MPA, I didn't know if I would have time to go to more than 1.
Okay.
But I will have to have, is it 8, I believe, that you have to go to?
Yes.
So I'll have to,
6 to 8, something.
yeah, I'll have to do 3 in 1 year, so. But since I didn't think I'd be able to fit it in, I didn't ask for an increase this year.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, thank you. That was,
I may have one right here.
go ahead.
Under special services, like 15,000, what exactly is that?
Let's see, so special services would include our offsite document storage where, we keep our records that we don't need access to on a daily basis. And then Rosie helped me. Rosie does my budget. So sometimes I don't know exactly what fits under line items. Other than access, I think it's mostly just document storage. So, and you can You can get rid of originals once you've digitized, but you have to file with the state saying that that's your plan. I'm just not super comfortable doing that on things that are ordinances and, like, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable shredding the originals, even if we go to digital copies as well. So we have digital within the city that we can access, but I like to know that those physical records are still there, so. Oh, the Muni code that I was talking about. So whenever you all adopt an ordinance, we send it to Muni code, their attorneys incorporate it into our code. So. Thank you, Lakita.
How long would be the process to get everything digitized?
Well, the last time I got an estimate on it, I don't know how long it would have taken, but they gave me an estimate of about $12,000 to go through all of what we have in offsite storage and make sure it's all scanned in. So the other thing that comes with that though is having the server space to store it all. So that I don't know a number on.
And these, is there like a cost for manpower to do that?
That was,
Temp?
when I got that, it was a company called RCI and they send people out. That's what they do. They just open up boxes, take out staples and run through everything.
Lord up.
So we don't have a ton in offsite storage, but some of it is not scanned in. So it would be a valid expenditure of money because then we don't have to call boxes back when we get an open records request. So. But again, I don't think we have the manpower to even oversee someone else doing that task right this second. So.
Not at this moment, no.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions? Just for clarity for the public and those that are watching live stream, this portion of the budget presentation was for the city secretary and communications department. Okay, do you have anything further to add? Leslie?
As long as you all
Okay.
don't have any more questions.
The next section then will be for the library and the senior center department. Amanda King.
Good evening. I always wonder if y'all can hear me.
No, not yet.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the library and the senior center. Okay, so I think we've gone over the library's mission before. If you guys haven't heard of it, it's the Kidderville Library serves the community as a central hub for information. The library connects patrons with their community by offering innovative programs, gathering spaces, and services to enrich their lives. So this year, what we did with the challenges that COVID brought us, we secured 10 Chromebooks and 25 mobile hotspots via grant funding to serve our community while we were closed. So we didn't have a lot of patrons who actually took us up on utilizing those, but we're going to be able to utilize those Chromebooks throughout the library instead of having people sit in one spot going forward. So it actually fulfills some of the goals that we had for our technology services in the long term. And that partnership that mobile hotspot grant that we were part of was also part of something that the school district, where the city was able to provide hotspots to the school district as well. We continue to serve the community with both virtual and in-person programming. So last year, let me see here really quick. My statistics. If I can find them. We served 23,998 people via virtual programming, which was an extremely high number. even while we were closed. So that would be our children's librarian or children's library services person, Kelly Skiles, doing children's programming on Facebook weekly, and library, Lego Club and Baby Garden every week for a year plus. The library's responsibilities are really varied. In a small town, we don't just provide books. So especially during COVID, we did a lot of phone assistance in the past year. We provide workforce and computer services, citywide facility reservations, early child development programming. We've done all the Meals on Wheels coordination for the senior center. We're a print, copy, and fax center for local residents. We've been the senior center liaison. We obviously have a community resource collection with books, videos, electronic databases, and we're the community center and gathering space. We manage all that. We do that with a staff of 4 currently, 4 people. Currently 3.5 FTE that's actually filled. And we're proposing for the senior center that we have the following staff, a line cook and a community engagement specialist. I know that y'all already had that presentation earlier in the year, so I won't go over that again. Our short-term goals are to work to return our engagement in the door to pre-COVID levels. So we did have a lot of virtual engagement. And just since we reopened, I believe in March, we've seen a lot of people coming back to the library, but obviously it hasn't been a year. So we want to see a full re-engagement of people coming back in. Of course, there's challenges with COVID that's kind of ebbing and flowing. So it's really a hard target to get to. We're going to continue with our replacement schedule of outdated materials, 5% of the collection in fiscal 22. We're going to reevaluate our internal policies and procedures for efficiency and service excellence. This is something we continually do as well. We always are asking ourselves, how can we make our policies better? Where are our procedures extraneous, so that we can make sure that the residents are getting the services they need. And we're going to work with stakeholders to finalize our new strategic plan for the library. We developed one when I got here in 2015, 2016, and it's time to do a new one. We have to have one on file for the state library. And so that's going to require us to work with the community and with council and with the city administration to really develop that. So you'll be hearing more about that as time goes by. And then, of course, we always like to partner with other agencies and city departments to achieve common community goals. Okay, long-term, we'd like to engage an architect for preliminary designs of a building renovation. I don't know if any of y'all have been in the library and into the staff area, but it's one room and there's not actually adequate staff space in that area. And we do need to expand throughout the facility in the long term. So that is something that I have brought up each year to council, that's something that we need to do for long-term planning. It's not something that we need to discuss this year, but it is something that needs to be discussed at some point. We need to implement the self-check system that we got grant funding for last year. We're still trying to work with Arlington. There's some technology issues there that we're trying to iron out. And then, of course, we want to assist the senior center board in identifying necessary resources to form a charitable nonprofit so that they can harness some charitable donations and things like that. I think that we identified that as a goal for the seniors going forward to help us all work together as a community. Okay, so the senior center new program requests are to include moving the part-time staff member that was in the library over to the senior center as a line cook and groceries and supplies. So that's $25,000 and change, which again, we've already discussed. And then also the library new program requests, just for the sake of it being streamlined, I included the community engagement specialist under the library for a new program request. But that person we discussed it being split between the two budgets. So, you know, however it works out in the end, that was the discussion. So that's what you're seeing here as far as the library's program request for the community engagement specialist. And then in addition, I know that council had discussed having town halls, and I also know that the city staff are regularly using the community center for training for the police and the fire department. And we don't have any sound equipment in that facility. We don't have a projector screen, and we don't have any acoustical tiles. So it really reverberates badly in that space. So, you know, I just put it in here as something that we could look at possibly funding so that we could have a space that's not just a formal space like this, to have something that the council had discussed being something that they were interested in. So that's why that is in there. Now, I know this is tiny and y'all are gonna hate it. But it's the only way I could figure out how to fit all of it on there. No, it's not. Well, there's going to be another slide that makes it a little bit easier. So this is the current budget. So our current budget as amended is $293,925. Okay. And the senior center's amended budget, and that would include the renovations. Okay. So the adopted budget did not include the renovations. The adopted budget was $38,376. And the amended budget was $88,376. Okay. So moving on to the proposed budgets. Now, my proposed budget does not include the new staffing or anything that I've discussed. Okay. This is just like she said, this is just basic stuff. So it comes out to about 295,000 and some change. And I believe that my number on my proposed and the number you may see on the next page are a little different, but that's because Lakita's better at numbers than me. So I would go with Lakita's number on the next page. And then down here on the senior center, this is what it would look like if we didn't add any staffing. $48,316 just to have a building with no staff. Okay. Now, this is the budget comparison. Okay, I want you to remember that this is only library. This does not include senior center. Okay, so my budget this year was 76% personnel. Operations is 24%. That's that 3.5 people. The total baseline budget, if we go forward for next year, is $298,930. That's why I said if you go and if you get your magnifying glass out, it's going to be a little bit different number. But that, again, that's because Lakita's better at math on her projections. She got her projections closer than I did. And then if you were to put all of those things in library things that I discussed, this is what it would look like. So it doesn't include the senior center portion on this slide for you. And that's the end of my presentation.
I have a quick question. On the senior center part of it, the current without the amended was 38,376 and the proposed is 48,000. What's the difference in the 10,000? I can't read it, so.
It's okay. I had put in about 12,000 for special services like bingo and things like that, which can be adjusted depending on what council decides to fund for the senior center. Not just bingo, but like all of the programming and things like that. Because I wasn't sure how y'all were gonna end up staffing the senior center, and I had to kind of make some of these projections based on not knowing where that was gonna land at the time that I submitted this.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We're going to have council questions. We'll start at James's end this time.
Oh, I have a few.
I'm
Okay.
sure.
All right, so what's your plan for re-engagement?
Re-engaging the public.
Yes.
So the first thing that we have to do is really, it's just being open, and showing that we're consistently open. That's the hardest part right now, is just reestablishing that trust that we're not just going to shut down at any moment. So consistency is key at this moment. Right now, this past summer, we've been open and we've had a huge response to being open. But we've still had challenges in covering all those hours. So, we've got to be able to consistently remain open. That's the first thing we've got to do to build trust back in our community.
Now, on here, under short-term goals, it says work with stakeholders to finalize a new strategic plan.
Mhm.
What stakeholders?
Stakeholders would be the council.
Just council, community?
Council, community, any sort of nonprofits in the area that are doing community work, anything like that, that might have goals that they might want to have an input in what's going on in the library.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, in the identifying needs, how often do you think that the projections, sound equipment, acoustics and stuff like that for the community center would be used?
Well, I know that the police department is going to be in there doing a Citizens Police Academy every Monday night for how many weeks? 9 weeks this fall. The fire department does training in there how many times a year?
We do it 3 days a month, for about 6 months.
Yeah.
So-
In addition, we have other people who would like to utilize the facility.
So it would get used a lot,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to justify the cost of that.
Mhm.
Another thing,
And again, that's a projected cost.
Yes.
We would hope to get it down lower.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, what's wrong with desktops? I mean, I understand that you secured the 10 Chromebooks and 25 mobile hotspots via grant funding. Congratulations. What were they used for? What's wrong with the desktops?
Well, we had desktops, and what happened was that the desktops that we had, they went with thin clients with our last IT person. And since they were all hooked in together, there was an issue with I guess it was Microsoft 7 or Microsoft 10. There was it was 7. So they all went obsolete all at once. And so we were faced with an issue of having a security problem with our computers, and it wasn't actually budgeted and funded. And so at that point, I had to find a solution for that, and COVID hit. And so I was like, okay, we're going to implement a solution that we can make work.
Okay, and you said the 25 mobile hotspots. Are we renting any of these Chromebooks or mobile hotspots out, like for a monetary price? That would,
We can't actually do that
because
for the state library.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was just asking because I'm just sitting here going, giving someone a mobile hotspot and saying, have a good day. That's,
They bring them back.
I understand they bring it back, but it could be a little extra money there. Just FYI.
I know. I wish, here's the thing. The state says some things about how we can actually lend things in the library. And if we charge money for things, we can't count it. And then we have problems with our accreditation. So that's the challenge.
And one last question. I'm sorry, I'm taking up so much
No,
time.
that's okay.
On the budget comparison, just for the library only, 76% personnel, 24% operations.
Mhm.
That's kind of out of scale, don't you think?
It's actually very on track for every library in the state. They're generally at 70%, 75%.
75%. So we're at 76, but the operational cost of it is 24%.
That's generally right in line.
I would actually like to see that personnel actually scaled back and put another person over in the senior center.
Well, there's actually, I don't know how we're going to be able to do that and actually operate the library.
How many people does it take to operate the library?
We have to have at least 3 people on site at all times so that we have,
Is that per state law?
no, it is actually so that we can maintain safety.
Safety.
It is a safety issue because we've actually had a former library staff person attacked.
Okay, that's disconcerting. So
So we do need to maintain a certain amount of people in the facility at pretty much all times, unless it's the evening, we can have maybe 2 down to that number, but really we need to have 3.
what time does the library close? 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
It opens at 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday, and it closes at 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And then Fridays, it's open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays, it's open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
So there's only currently one day that it's not open, and that would be Sunday.
Sunday and Monday. Oh, I'm sorry, I said Monday, Tuesday through Thursday. So it's it's closed Sunday and Monday.
All right, I understand the safety personnel, but I'd still like to see a scale back on that, to be quite honest with you, because I mean, I used to run a business my own self, and if my costs were here and my personnel was here, I was losing money.
Yeah, I get.
So if we drop that down to a little bit, you kind of hit that break even point. So that would actually bring your budget down a little bit, where we can actually save a little bit of money so that we can actually afford those new those new things that you're wanting. We need to bring that level down. And 76% personnel, it's just way too much because your overhead is just way too much. So if you want to, you can take one of those extra people, put them over in a senior citizen center, hey, there's more staffing. You need to bring that number down. You need to hit that break even. And right now we're overhead. Thank you.
Okay, Julie? Gary? And Jan?
What staffing did you have prior to the incident?
They didn't have adequate staffing then either. They only had like, I want to say they had 3.5 staffing. And when that happened,
So it's about the same as what you currently have.
we had gotten our staffing up to 4 and I think, 4. We really should have, and I hate to say this, but it really should be more like 6.
I was just curious what it was before because
And I know that's hard to hear, but
comparison.
just for safety and everything, it really should be higher.
And are there guidelines? Because I know there's state guidelines, which is so interesting to me. Are there state guidelines for the library as well on that?
There are some guidelines from state associations. There are not guidelines from the state regarding that. However, the attitude of the state is basically, if you want an accredited library, you're going to staff an accredited library. And if you're not wanting an accredited library, that's really a risk that council's going to have to take.
Right.
And is there a way to get this where it's bigger?
Yes,
Yeah, where
I can
read
send it to you where it's
Okay,
bigger.
thank you.
Mhm.
And for the senior center, the cleaning, I couldn't actually read it on here, but I know on the last year it was approved at almost 18,000.
I don't know if that's the cleaning service that comes in. So I don't know if I would necessarily want to cut cleaning services during the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah,
I
I
don't-
just was
I couldn't-
wondering what it was on here. I can't read that.
Hold on.
I think it says 13. I'm not sure.
I want to say, is that under special services?
Building maintenance.
Building maintenance? Is it 17? It's the same.
Okay, so it's the same number? Okay.
It's the same number.
Is that something, so with the senior center, I know that there's been a lot of volunteers. A
Mhm.
lot of people say, I want to volunteer to
Yes.
do this. I want to volunteer to do that.
Mhm.
Is the cleaning something that can be volunteered? Because I do have people that are always saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. Let me do this. Let me help. You know, a lot
It's
of people
something we
that are
could-
retired.
I think it's something that we'd have to evaluate as staff, but it's something that could be possible. You know, I don't see why some things couldn't be looked at, you know?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Linda, if I may just ask one question. When you're saying that the state library requires a certain amount of employees in order for y'all to be accredited?
No, it says it requires, I said state associations recommend a certain number of employees.
So do those state association recommendations determine whether you're accredited or not?
They don't, but the state library does, depending on the number of hours that we're open, and the amount of money that we're funded, and the amount of people who come in. There's a lot of things that go into accreditation.
Is that something you'd be able to get us kind of the calculation of how that's done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay.
On the meals, so currently there are no meals being provided. Is that
Mm-mm.
correct? Okay, so no meals are being provided. And the 25,000, somewhere I saw Patty's name on here.
Yes, Patty's name's on there.
Okay, and so she's stepped up and said, I'd like to,
Well, we've talked to her and she's amenable to doing it. So it sounds like it's gonna be a workable solution. We just got to get that processed and everything.
and the 25,000 is the part-time line cook plus groceries.
Yes. Mhm.
And what is it, what's the separation? What's the groceries?
The
is what,
groceries is
15?
about 10,000.
10's groceries.
Yeah, I will tell you that Patty, she said that, you know, she's really flexible on the amount of hours that she thinks it might take. So she might not need all those hours,
Mhm.
which would be really good from a budgetary aspect.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of people that have access to food
Mhm.
that can.
Yeah, which might help with that as well.
Mhm.
You know, like I said, some of those things are going to come down,
Mhm.
but it's just, we're just kind of starting from, you know, I know you'd even offered, Gary, so.
And have we started a volunteer list? And this has nothing to do with the budget, but I just remember when we were talking about
Yeah.
this, several people at the council meeting that night.
We've told people they can talk to us at the library. I know Sarah's called and talked. We've had a few things that have come up, but yeah, we've started taking that list down
Okay.
of everything so that, and we've started working on policies and stuff. And I've been talking with the fire chief about how to make sure everything's safe, COVID wise and everything. So we're working on stuff.
Okay. All right. And so if we meet people, as we meet people or have people call us, we can
Mhm.
continue to have them call and
Yes,
get their
please
name
do.
added to the,
Yes, please do.
okay, very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
One last, go ahead.
You go ahead and then I'll end, but go ahead.
Sorry, one last question. With food costs being kind of high, do you think $10,000 is a conservative number? Or do you think it should be higher?
I think that considering that we are not sure what's going to happen with COVID right now, that I think that it's a good number because we may reopen and we may have stops and starts here for a bit. And we've got people who are willing to possibly step up with donations.
Okay.
So I think it's a good number.
So to say, 5 years ago, a can of green beans cost 69 cents. Now it costs $1.49. So
Yeah.
I think $10,000 is a very conservative price. And I think it needs to be upped a little bit, just to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. We went through those numbers with Patty and she's the one who developed that by going, and she's the one who has the experience.
Okay.
So that, I know, I've
I'm just,
wondered myself, but she's the one with the
you know,
experience.
a year and a half ago, I spent like, $400 in groceries just for
I know.
myself for a single person in 1 month. And
Believe me.
now I'm spending
I
almost 600. So it's just like,
Yes.
so thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a few things. One, I don't know if it might be premature to actually name a person's name in the presentation. I'm not sure that, we may have to go through the process of applying, putting out for applications. That would be something that would be handed down from the to-be HR person and city manager. And the volunteers and all, I've too had several people, approach me. But anyone touching food, you have to be very careful with
Yes.
that, food handler's license and whatever requirements the health
Absolutely.
department has. And then when we had budget talks last year, I was Gary, were you on that? No. So I was the only one on this council at that time when we talked about the budget, and this was pre-COVID, remind everybody, pre-COVID, when these things were talked about, as far as we had to drop, we didn't have to, but it was a good solution to drop the contract with 60 and better. And the library at that time assured council that they could handle that they could take it on. This was pre-COVID, same amount of people. So, when James brought it up about the personnel and why can't we handle it now? Because we could back then, pre-COVID. So what's the difference? That's just things to think about and to include in your presentation.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I wanted to ask is, they used to have folk. Is that still around? Friends of the Library?
Kennedale. Mhm.
They are. Who's on that?
Robert Mundy, Lana Sather, Sylvia Howell. A couple of names escape me at the moment, and they're probably going to get upset with me, and I'm so sorry. Jeff Navarez is on there. And I think Cassie Conroy is on Folk.
And I'm not sure what their duties are and, how active they are, but why not incorporate them as a volunteer, maybe at the library to sit at the welcome desk, to greet the patrons and stuff. Just some ideas, if you needed additional help in the personnel, in the personnel area. Okay, Rosie, do we have anyone that signed up? I didn't ask earlier, but we're still in the presentation. Okay, so then good, I won't have to ask that again, sorry. No additional questions or comments for Amanda? Okay, thank you. Sure, we can take about, 5 minutes.
Hey, it's like. What's up, brother? I broke it. Oh, heavens.
Sometimes it takes my look to see.
You gonna find me? Oh, there I am. Look at there, just like I know what I'm doing. Cool. Oh.
I was, and then it went away. Wasn't it?
Today is one of those.
What the world did you do?
Sweat down the armpits too. Please. How are you?
Good, you're all set.
Thank you. I didn't. I got your right. To this email. My firewall, which is why you have double here. So then I'm like, oh, fix this and then- and then I'm like, oh, I should probably, it's time to go. When I'll be like,
You blink and it's not.
yeah. That's what.
Thank you. James, Linda and Leslie.
Wait, what is your name? Okay, it's been 5 minutes, so we can come back in for the break, and the next department will be fire department.
I don't think you could hear me. I'm sorry. We resumed back from our break. And the next department up should be fire department, but if we need to take one out of order, we can. Let's see. Okay. So I'm not seeing fire department at this time. Okay, there you are. We shall move forward with the fire department.
Right.
Go ahead, Chief.
Good evening, council and mayor. tonight, I'm just going to give you that brief overview that all of our department heads are doing. I want to start out by giving you the mission of the fire department. Our mission is to protect the lives and property of the citizens of Kennedale. We do that through public education, fire prevention, code enforcement, and the response of highly trained professional emergency response personnel. That's our mission. That's our goal. Some of the highlights that we've seen this year, we're fully staffed with all of our personnel. And I say that as a highlight because it is. We've struggled over time with maintaining that staff, and we have gone about 8 months fully staffed. So I'm incredibly excited about how that's worked out for us this year. Continuing education this year. This past year, we put 4 of our personnel through paramedic school, got them completed, and on the streets, all of our personnel now are firefighter paramedic certified, which is the goal for all of our personnel. So it worked out real good for us this year. This year, we were able to secure a grant to fund 25% of our purchase for a future fire truck. And we're still working on that as we go along with that. Last year, as far as call volume, we ran 1,329 calls last year. 744 of those were EMS calls. I have a lot of people ask me, so what do y'all do? Biggest portion of what we do is EMS. Citizen sick, whatever that is. Normally when we go see them, it's large case, it's the worst day of their life, whatever that may be, whether they have their house burns or they're having a heart attack or whatever that is. So it's kind of how we're at and how our call responses are broke down. I was looking at last year compared to this year. This year we've seen we're on line for an increased call volume of 15% this year, and that's huge. Last year's numbers there again were up about 9%. If we continue how we're going right now, it's going to be about a 15% increase. Some of the other highlights that we saw this year. Here, let me turn this page before I get going. There it is. Okay. We're in the process and have completed some CPR and AED training for our city staff this year. What we will be doing in the future associated with that, we're rolling out CPR training to the citizens. We'll be having quarterly CPR and AED training delivered to the city later this year as well. This year, we're able to establish a fire billing revenue stream. And we're also able to put together a new fire permit fee structure that has helped us bring in quite a few fees throughout the growth of the city this year. Projects currently, we're, as I mentioned earlier, the Clean Fleet grant. There again, that's the grant that's funding fire truck. So what that requires us on a monthly basis, we have to go and report to the COG where we're at in the process of fulfilling the needs of their grant. They require a lot of paperwork, knowing where we're at, where we're going. So this process for building an engine that y'all had approved us for in the last meeting through the bond sales, it takes 12 to 13 months to build a fire truck. So with that, we're looking at October of next year before we get it. And then we have to close out this grant. So we've got a short period of time, about 3 months, to do all the paperwork to complete that grant. So it's an ongoing lot of work to make sure that we fulfill their needs. Some of the other things that we're working on is some grants through the county emergency services district. Some additional is Helping Hero grant that one of the area pipeline companies hands out on occasion. We've been lucky and fortunate to get that several years running. We're in the process of completing a basic remodel for the fire station. put a little lipstick on the pig, so to speak. We just recently, we painted all the walls, replaced all the ceiling and lighting in there and insulated everything. So what I've been trying to do is make it as tight as we can and economic as possible for us. And that helps us in our budget as far as electrical use and such. We're also working with one of the local vendors on the replacement of the ambulance as well. So we've got a few things going on. Some of the future facility evaluations. Look at the fire station. Where are we at? Where are we going down the road? And what our needs are. Continue the development of a fire prevention program. And you'll see in some of the new items that we're looking at is the possibility of hiring a fire marshal for the future, additional personnel and public safety education from the fire marshal's side as well. And advanced training for our personnel. That advanced training is to get some of our guys through fire inspections, fire investigator certifications through the state, rope rescue, swift water rescue. You know, when we bring a guy in and we train them, give them additional training, well, they get more buy-in to where we're at. And it helps us in the recruitment and retention of those personnel as well. So that's what we look at for the future. Personnel and the way we're staffed. So our total staffing on the operations side is 18. And what that breaks down to is we have 3 lieutenants, we have 3 driver engineers, and we have 12 firefighter paramedics. On the administrative side, we have myself, fire chief, and administrative assistant. Short-term goals, recruitment and retention. If you hang out around me long enough, you'll hear me say that over and over and over and over again. It's incredibly important for us to bring in the right people that will help us down the road. You know, I always say, from my perspective, I want to train those that work underneath me how to do my job. Because if I get hit by a bus today, they need to be able to take over. And that's the way from a fire department side, you see the military side, police side as well. That's the way we teach and train our people. Establish and implement a capital replacement plan. And what that is, you know, capital is anything that has a value of $5,000 and has a life longer than a year. Every year I go in and evaluate what that capital replacement plan for us is. What is it we need to buy next year and next year and next year? And I'll put a life with everything that we have that falls underneath that. And ideally, each year is to spend an equal amount to replace that equipment as we go along. It's kind of hard to do that when you're buying a $700,000 fire truck. But anyway, the rest of it is what I try and fulfill. Facilities evaluation for the future. What is it that we need from a public safety building, from a fire station? That's some of my short-term goals. Where are we going? I'm still trying to update all of our standing SOPs, our processes, how we do things. You know, policies are, to me, they're a live document. What I mean by that is depending on what changes throughout society and acceptable standards and all that stuff, our policies will change based off of that. I've seen a lot of organizations, they'll establish a policy and they stick with that thing for 10 years. If a policy doesn't work, you either throw it away or you revise it and bring it up to date. Short-term public education, CPR to the public, evaluate our staffing needs for the future. What do we need in our growth for the future? Develop a fire prevention program that ensures all businesses are complying with current codes and also providing enforcement for the citizen's safety. That's what we're here for. Evaluate EMS subscription plan and deliver EMS safety tips to the community. Long-term recruitment and retention. I told you I'm gonna get pretty repetitive about that. It's incredibly important for us. Increase our ambulance revenues. I look at that each year. Where are we at? Are we collecting the proper funds compared to everybody around us that runs an ambulance? We run those comparisons on a regular basis. Continuation of our capital replacement plan, facilities replacement, that includes station administration, our training facilities, sufficient staffing to conduct all of our inspections to reduce the support from the operations personnel. So right now, all of our annual inspections are done through off the fire trucks. So you'll see them out on the parkway where we're at. We go in, they go out and they do inspection of those business, fire safety inspections of all of those. We try to do this on an annual basis. But in the midst of them doing that, if they catch a call, they're gone. And hopefully they're back in 30 minutes. It could be 4 or 5 hours, or they call that particular business owner up and go, we'll catch you next time. So anyway, that's why when I talk about a fire marshal, that's what we need a fire marshal for, to do those, conduct those operations. Provide strong support to operations personnel with pre-fire plans. That's another thing long-term that that fire marshal would assist us in doing. Okay, kind of like Amanda's, you probably can't see everything in here. So what the left side of that slide shows us is the comparison of the 2021 budget. It's the approved budget, the amended budget with the salary adjustments, and the projected budget. And the last column on there actually shows us what that proposed budget is. But I've kind of simplified that in that right column, and it kind of breaks down what it looked like for us. So if we look at the 2021 amended budget, we talked about personnel costs. We were talking about that a while ago, James. What that looks like for us, personnel costs is 85.6% in last year's budget. Our operations budget is 14.4%. And you know, what does operations mean, right? So operations for us, that's building maintenance, that's vehicle maintenance, that's paying the utilities, that's fuel, our personal protective equipment, our EMS supplies for our ambulance. That's our firefighting tools and equipment. That's our state mandated training. That's station supplies. That's everything. So when you look at the proposed at the bottom, the numbers are about the same. Personnel costs are about 86.7, operations at 13.2. And these numbers actually include the projection of some of the additional items that I would like to see you look at this year as well. So some of those new projects that we're talking about, I've got in here a fire marshal, arson investigator at a cost of $147,000. That's the first year that cost would look at. Going forward, it would be about $102,000, and that's personnel costs. That's all of the benefits and associated with that. So that's total cost on that. So what does a fire marshal do? Fire marshal is a position that is a valuable asset to the growth of our city. His roles and responsibility are the enforcement of provisions of the fire code, laws and regulations of Kennedale that we've established pertaining to fire prevention and fire protection. That's one of his roles. Inspection of all buildings in accordance with the provisions of the fire code. Reviews building and sprinkler plans to ensure code enforcement meets what the development requires. Investigate cause and origin of fires. An investigator, what he does is he goes in and he tries to determine what caused the fire. He'll gather evidence just like some of our police officers in the event of a crime. So basically a fire investigator, he investigates that fire as a crime to determine if it is arson or not. And then, another one of his roles is disseminating fire safety education to the public, letting the public know what's safe and what's not. It's a big role. Public education is a big, big thing for us. Now, having a fire marshal that is solely dedicated to the prevention and public education will aid us in proper development of our city in the future. Next item I have on there is the station furniture. Our current furniture is in need of replacement. We've had it for a long time, it's just falling apart, so it's time to replace it. I don't have funding in our regular operations budget to replace everything that needs to be replaced. And then the last one is assignment pay. The goal of assignment pay is to fairly compensate the employee when they're asked to take on additional roles and responsibilities. An example of that, when I have a firefighter paramedic that acts up into the driver engineer's role, we give him a sole responsibility to make sure that vehicle is checked out, fully operational in the morning. We require him to drive an $80,000 fire truck down the road in a safe manner. We require him to pump a fire to make sure the guys that are on the end of that line are safe when they're in a house. That's some of his roles and responsibilities. Same thing with a lieutenant. When we have a driver engineer that acts in the lieutenant's role, that lieutenant's sole job is the safety of his personnel, the safety of the citizens, and the extinguishment of that fire or whatever the incident may be, medical call or whatever that is. So that assignment pay, what that is basically a stipend when they are in that role. We give them a small amount of money to somewhat compensate them for that role that they're taking place in. The last thing, future considerations. Please continue adjusting the pay plan to meet the current market and support the step plan for the future. Quite honestly, that's one of the biggest issues that I had got in trying to keep our personnel. They could go across the street and make $10,000, $15,000 more doing the same job. If we are able to be at market rate across the industry, we're able to maintain those good employees that we have. Support our capital replacement plan and allow us to establish an RFP this year for the replacement of the public safety building. Going out on an RFP doesn't cost us anything. It's basically going to these engineering firms and saying, hey, we've got an idea. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to build. What's that look like for us? And what's it going to cost us? And this last one is kind of a breakdown and a comparison of what those budgets look like. So we will end this year with a total budget of $2.492,360. The budget as proposed was increased 5.5% to the number that you see there. And with the additional programs and staffing that I had just mentioned, takes it up to the $2,796,084. What questions might y'all have?
Okay, we'll start with Julie this time.
Jumping around.
Yeah.
There you go.
How long have we been without a fire marshal and arson investigator?
They had a fire marshal here 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. Bob Hart was the city manager here and he was cutting budget. And at the time, the fire chief that was here did not have the role filled. So to give money back, he said, here, you can just have this position. That's the story I got. I was not here. And that is not a great choice. So I'll say that, just not a great choice.
Were you given any reasoning for why they decided to do that besides what you just said?
No.
Okay. And then could you tell us a little bit about how the city has been functioning without a fire marshal?
I'm the fire marshal.
Okay. What is that? What additional duties is that to what your,
So for me, I'm the fire chief, I'm the fire marshal, and I'm the emergency management coordinator for the city. So from a fire marshal side, there's quite a few things to do. One of the things that we're lacking that I'm not able to do that I think we need to do is the education of the public about fire safety education. We can do that on small scales when we have events at the fire station, like our public safety education that we have in October. So we can do a little bit of that. Our CPR training kind of falls into that because with the CPR training, we can also do that. But the fire marshal, any buildings that we have come in, a new construction as an example, there are plans reviews from the fire side when it comes to the plat itself, the fire lanes. There's the plans review for the sprinkler systems. There's plans reviews for the fire alarm systems. And then there's inspections associated with all of those. So we go out and inspect once the fire lanes have been put in. We go out and we do underground inspections of where the hydrants are located and how that plumbing is assessed. We go in after the fact and do tests of the sprinkler systems. We go out and do the inspections on the fire alarm systems. Like today, my duties today, I started out at 8 o'clock up at the corner at Sabre Industries. We had them install a fire alarm system in their facility. We spent 2 hours going through their facility and checking out all their smoke alarms, checking out all of their pull stations, and all of that. My next was at 1 o'clock today. I was in a ditch up here at I think it was the Pit Stop grocery store. I don't think that's the name of it. Anyway, they put in new underground storage tanks. Anytime that they pull tanks or put in a gas station to put tanks in, we go out and do inspection of how they prep the ground, how they set the tanks. We observe the pressure tanks. So when they put those tanks in, they pressurize them to make sure that they have no leaks. So I was out there working with TCEQ today, that's Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, on that. And that's just some small things. At the same time, my engine company went down to Arthur Elementary, not Arthur, the middle school, which is another one, to do their annual inspection, fire safety inspection. We do those every year prior to school starting. We will make sure the buildings are safe before that happens. That's just, if we had a fire marshal that could do that instead of, like I said, an engine company, they went out there, they started the inspection, they caught a call, they had to leave. Anyway, so it's got a little bit of a vicious circle.
So are you saying that a lot of the inspections get delayed because people are getting called to another place?
They do.
And could you tell us what RFQ stands for?
Request for qualifications, or RFP is another word, request for proposal. I probably should have had RFP in there, not RFQ. So RFQ is you'll get with a company, you know, ABC Construction, and we'll evaluate what their qualifications are for a particular job. Request for proposal is kind of the same thing. We're wanting to build this building. This is what we look, this is what we're wanting. This is what the footprint looks like for us. And they'll give us a construction cost associated with that.
And I did have I hope just one more question. I wanted you to give us more information as to fire billing revenue stream.
Okay, so last year, council, I think it was April and May, they approved the fire billing revenue stream. And what that is, okay, so if you're driving down the road and you have a car wreck and the fire department comes out and cuts you out of the car, and in that accident, we've spilled engine fluid on the roadway or whatever. What the fire billing does is they look at your insurance and there's a provision in a lot of insurance, it's not in all the insurance, that it's a rider on the insurance that we can bill for and get some revenue stream associated with it. It's not a lot of money. It depends on the incidents as a whole. It does not affect the insurance rates of who it is billed against, which is a good thing. I've always looked at it in a small sense as free money that a lot of organizations don't use.
Thank you.
Okay, Carrie.
I was just wondering, what about this, let me find it again. Special services, what would that be? That's like $50,000.
Hold on, I'll put my glasses on so I can read what I got.
You won't be able to see it with glasses either, I don't think.
You want to borrow yours? Okay, so special services for us is our annual fit for duty physicals. It pays for our contract with our medical director, which includes our protocols and medical control. It pays for our ambulance billing contract through Emergicon. They're the third party that does our billing for our ambulance fees. It pays for our the percentage on the fire billing that they get as well. It helps us, pays for our background searches, our checks when we do, when we hire folks, pays for our poly and psych exams for new personnel as well. Pays for the physicals for those new personnel, and is also medical waste disposal. So being in the ambulance service, we create waste, whether it's through our PPE or any dirty needles that we have when we start IVs or anything like that. So we have to dispose of that properly, and that's some of the stuff that falls in there.
What about the other equipment at like 35,000? Just give me an example what that would be. So last line item.
2 years ago, I proposed to council about replacing our self-contained breathing apparatuses. So at the time, we had 19 breathing apparatus that did not meet the standards. They've gone out of compliance, and we're still using them. So at that time, the council, what I proposed to council, I said, look, I can replace these over a 4-year period. And so we can spread that cost out. So we're not having to replace all 19 of them at the same time. So when I went back and evaluated it, I've dropped that number down from 19 to 15. So the first year, we funded 6 because we had 6 that needed to go away. We put those on our frontline engine. Last year, I proposed 4 SCBAs in that replacement schedule, and council cut it to 2 last year. So this year, I think last year I had it as a line item at about 18 because we cut it. This year, I'm proposing to purchase 4, and that will get us to 12 new ones for in that replacement plan. Next year, we should meet our goal to get all of them replaced in that 4-year timeframe. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jan.
It's a lot. It's a lot. How much of your time, you and I visited a while back and you had mentioned something to me about how much time you spend in retention and recruitment.
Yeah, I've been here 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years, and I have probably spent 40 to 50% of my time hiring new people, training them. And the training doesn't stop with the basic training that I do with them here. They go to the fire station and we take that brand new guy and we train him in basic fire operations. When he leaves, we start that process over again. So being able to keep our people and retain them, what it'll do is it'll allow me to stop having to train on the basics and train them to a higher level where we need our guys to be. We want highly qualified personnel doing what they do.
Do you think that we can ever be, okay, so we're Kennedale, all right, we have 8,000, 8,500 people. We have one station.
Mhm.
And we're competing with, you fill in the blank. Who are
Fort
we?
Worth, Arlington, Dallas, Plano, Allen, North Richland Hills, Haltom City. There's a host of them for sure.
So is it fair to say that we can compete with them? Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, being,
I can't compete with Allen. Allen starts out a firefighter at $77,000 a year. I can't compete with Hearst. They start them out at 74,000. But I can compete now with Mansfield. I'm pretty close. Mansfield starts out about 20 or about 65,000. We're now starting out at 60,500. I can compete with North Richland Hills. I can compete with Watauga. I can compete with Haltom City now. We've lost 4 people to Haltom City in the time I've been here. So we're a whole lot more competitive than we were. We'll never, and I wouldn't want to have to compete with Allen or Plano or even Hearst. You know, Hearst's pay plan is this. They start at 74,000. They top out in a year at 76,000. They're done. It's good money. But those are those outliers.
when
They truly
we,
are.
when we look at, well, and what I would like to see is, I don't even know where we are in the step plan. When I was on council, 2017, I was the one council person that pushed for the step plan and, pushed to get it going.
Right.
I don't even know where we're at. I remember the meeting where we supported the city manager at the time and said, yes, this is what we want, but it didn't happen. I don't even know where we are. I don't know what it looks like. And because I wasn't on the council 2 years,
Sure.
In the last 2 years, and I don't think anyone except for the mayor, is there a way for us to see, obviously not tonight, but where we are on the step plan, where we started and where we are?
Yeah, there is. There absolutely is. And so what we should be tasked with every year is to reevaluate and basically see what everybody else is doing to stay in that deal. But from us, kind of an overview from what you said. So the plan was established in 2018. January 2018, they'd had a survey done, a comparison survey, and y'all accepted it in August, I believe, of that year. But city management they were only able to fund it at 90%. And we stayed at that. Never made any adjustments to the pay plan. So we were able to make those adjustments earlier this year to get into that competitive, basically back to the 100, what would have been the 100% at the time. Okay. It's from a realistic standpoint, the way the salaries have gone up, we're at about 92% probably at this point in time. But it got us so much closer. It's like, how do you look a 25-year-old guy in the face and say, I'm paying you $50,000 and no, don't go to Mansfield for 65. I can't look at that. I had one. Here's a story of one. We brought him in January. He was a paramedic only. We sent him to fire school. So 3 months to fire school. He gets out of fire school. He comes back and works for us another 7 months. He was with us 363 days. He went to work for Mansfield. He got a $15,000 pay increase. How could I look him in the face and go, no, you can't do that. I was disappointed, but newly married, has a kid. He's taking care of his family. And that's what we've been faced with in the past. So where we're at now is so much better, so much closer to where it is that we can retain these guys.
Good. That's good to hear. Is there a line item for the revenue that you bring in? Can we see the revenue that comes in from your department? The ambulance?
You can.
The,
and I'm going to defer to
Okay.
Yes.
And do you also receive funding from Tarrant County for just specific things that?
We
Tarrant-
get, so we've got a small district that we run in Tarrant County. And that's through the Tarrant County ESD. And we get some revenue through that, and some of the revenue that she can give to y'all will show what that is.
Okay.
And I just recently met with them about expanding our territory just a little bit more. An example, Valley Trail, or is it Valley Lane over there off of Linda? Valley Trail is in the county, okay? Rendon is first due in there. The city completely surrounds that donut hole, is what I call it, which is just kind of silly. So I recently met with him and said, we need to make some adjustments on those lines. And ultimately, if our territory grows, we'll get a little bit more funding from the county as well. So we're getting a lot of support from the county more recently, which is a great thing. So, and right now, Councilman Jacobson, you'd asked about the fire marshal. Right now, if I have a suspected arson investigation in town, we end up calling the county out. So a basic investigation on a house fire, we will do. So my lieutenants will go in there and they'll evaluate it, and if they see something suspicious, they'll say, okay, we need a fire marshal. We don't have a fire marshal specifically. And so we have the ability to use the county. County doesn't charge us anything. So one of the county fire marshals will come out and do that investigation with us. And if it is an arson, then they will take it beyond that. It's good. They're a lot of help for us in that aspect, but he keeps asking me, when are you getting a fire marshal? So,
Well, I'm glad to hear that we have the support, obviously, from Tarrant County and
Absolutely.
that there's possibility of more even financial support from them as well.
Mhm.
But I would like to see the revenue line item on that too. Is it? Yep. Perfect. And that's broken out with the fire department? Okay, okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's see. I do have another question. Hold on, let me find it. What about an emergency plan? When we had the freeze,
Mhm.
I didn't really feel like there was an emergency plan put in place. Is that something that you've looked at kind of after the fact and things that we could do
Yeah,
different?
most definitely. We everywhere weren't really prepared for Snowmageddon.
Right.
It was definitely something outside the box, right?
Yes, it was.
We are part of Tarrant County's emergency action
Right.
plan. And told you I was gonna send that to you. Dropbox. It was too big. I couldn't send it to you, just FYI. I did try. But anyway, so it has some processes and procedures that we have. So what we're able to do as part of the county's emergency plan, Tarrant County has an emergency coordination that if you don't have one for your individual city, you can be a part of their plan. So we're a part of that plan. But yeah, Snowmageddon was outside the realm. Yeah, looking back on it, there is definitely stuff that we should have done a whole lot quicker, like opening up the Warming Center is just a basic example. Some of the issues we got into is, I hate using the word COVID, but the COVID in association with people in the same rooms and all that stuff. So it's chicken or the egg, I guess, sort of, right? Bring them together to keep them from, being cold or possibility of getting this stupid disease.
Right, I get it. But that is something, I guess my question is that something that you would be working on so that we could do a better job?
It's something that we are working on already.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
And have you ever considered doing something similar to what the senior center was mentioned and doing a funding, like a fire station funding? I think that Chief Hull had even talked about it, where you set something up where if people want to fund or provide finances to the fire department that you can use for things like the furniture. Because I know there are people in this town that would bring you furniture probably tomorrow if they knew you needed it.
I understand that. There's specifics on furniture that we need ideally.
But I mean financially, so if there was a way for them to contribute to you.
It is nothing that I've thought about, quite honestly. So it's a good idea for sure. Each year incrementally, when I look at my budget, we've bought pieces, parts. But it's got to the point on that our dining room chairs were donated from a school 20 years ago. As a example.
Right.
They've shown some wear and tear. That's for
Oh, I'm sure. But I'm just want you to know that there are a lot of people in this town
Right.
that want to support you and want to do for you and just don't know how.
Right. Okay.
So if we had a way for them to do that, then you could use that for, whatever,
Right,
extra meals or, furniture or, I'm sure it would have to be set up so that you would be in control of it. But there are people that would love to
help
support you.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't want you sitting in chairs that are going to break or that look bad.
The look doesn't matter. I just don't want to fall
No,
apart.
I understand. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
For everything you do.
Appreciate it.
Okay, James?
You kind of took all my questions there, Jan. Yeah, I was actually going to ask how much have you received thus far from the revenue stream, but we'll get that information later. I did have a couple questions though. When you said public education, begin delivery of CPR training to the public, is that going to cost the fire department anything?
A little bit.
Is it, how much per se? Rough estimate.
1,500, 2,000 a year. And I'll fund it out of some of our training funds. I'll get equipment out of our daily, our EMS supplies is another example. So I've been gearing up to get the equipment, like the CPR dummies as an example, getting some of the parts that are broke on those, getting them updated and all that stuff. Okay. So roughly it'd be about $2,000 a year. Now there is a bit of there's a little bit of I don't want to say revenue stream, I hate to use that word, but most departments, when they do that, they'll try and recover a cost associated with it. So, hey, we're going to teach a CPR class and the cost is $20. And that helps us to pay for the personnel, because with these, we'll be using people off duty to teach those classes, because I don't want them to have to run on a call when we're in there teaching class, right?
That wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
Question, that's called real life. Real life training, let's go. I did have a question, increase ambulance revenue. Do you know what the other cities' prices are according to that revenue stream?
They vary. So I work with our billing company, which is Emergicon, on making sure that we keep with the status quo of the other ambulance services that are out there. So Emergicon, their primary goal is they're a billing company for EMS. So they work with a lot of different cities. So they have the ability to just know what that is. They'll also go in and they'll look at some of the large services locally, like MedStar, AMR in Arlington. They'll look at what Dallas's billing is as well. We can be charging a fair amount and kind of meet what that industry standard is.
Now, I would be remiss if I because I broke it down to Ms. King. Personnel 85.6%, operations 14. And again, we have that fine line, but I'm not going to put anyone's life in danger, so I'm going to skip through that.
I tell you, historically, I've worked on a budget before, a fire department budget with a personnel cost of about 94.5%. So your things, your operational budget, it's 5.5%.
Yeah, it's generally going to be lower because, you know, you guys have much more expensive things and,
Sure.
you know, I'm sorry, but I would much rather you save my life than check out a book. But fire marshal, arson investigator, $147,000. Is that like the going rate for that or?
So what that breaks down is, so the first year I've got to buy additional equipment for them. So a salary, that salary is at the price of a captain. And it's in our in our public safety pay scale. So to figure out costs of benefits, basically you can take that salary, add about 35% to that. So that's, you know, what is that? That's insurance, that's retirement, that's taxes, that's everything associated with it. And then the additional money for the first year there again is buying equipment to support them. That's a computer laptop for them to do work out in the field and hand tools and equipment for that particular job. Like I said, after that, it would be somewhere around about 102,000.
Okay. I think that is really all I have for you. I just want to say that, you know, 3 of my family members are first responders, medical first responders. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, and then I would like to just mention when Jan brought up the part about donations, we actually already have a program in place that probably a lot of people are not aware of. I just verified with Leslie and we still have that in place. If you go to our city website, it's under donation to a city program. And there are several items listed underneath that. And one of the items says fire, library, and/or police services. And if a citizen or anyone wants to donate to any of these items listed on here, the form is available on the website and you can list specifically what you would like it to go towards.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know
Okay.
about it.
So that's something for all the departments to remember. Okay, and then the next thing, I would just like to make a comment on the personnel concern about the high percentage. I know Lakita can vouch. That's just how it is. All departments. Personnel is our #1 asset, folks. We need them. We need good people. We need to keep our people. We appreciate every one of our employees. And then the last thing that I'd like to hit on, and I should have hit on this during the library section, but it really applies to all departments too. Building security. If there's an employee that feels unsafe in their environment, in their work environment, we need to address that. If we need to add additional cameras or whatever it takes, a person needs to feel safe. And I know right now we're very shorthanded. So City Hall, I'm sure if you walk down the hall during the day, you're going to see some people by themselves. So that's just my 2 cents on that. And I appreciate everything that your department does as well, and all the departments for that matter. And I don't have any additional questions or comments, but if you do, then
all right.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much.
I did have one last comment
go
really
ahead.
quickly about the donations on the city website. Is there any way that we can get that out on our Facebook post? You know, like post that maybe weekly for people in the city and other areas to see that?
We can post it. I wouldn't suggest weekly.
I just thought it would be, you know, nice.
I'm not even sure how long that's been on there, but I remembered
I
seeing it. And then when you said the word donation, I thought, well, we already have that, you know?
Yeah. It's been here at least since I got here.
Or maybe just, setting up another, like a GoFundMe page.
Mayor,
Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So there is a line item on donations underneath the general fund revenue detail. So that is on here, but I didn't know
Okay.
that there was a way to donate.
A way to actually,
It's under How Do I, and there's a link for How Do I donate to a city program.
so this is something that's already in place. It's already on the website. And obviously it's already set up in our financials. So that's good information to know. Okay, let's move on now to the next department. That would be our police department.
Thank you. Mayor, council, thanks for listening to us today. Hope mine goes a little bit easier than everybody else's. I really like to point out this picture that we have here. I have been here for 25 years and we have never had a group picture before.
Wow.
And so this is our first one and I'm very proud of that.
Wow.
I really wanted to pinpoint that out. We have some great employees, great officers, and very proud of them. Start off with our recognition, our mission statements and our highlights. The Kennedale Police Department is a community-driven organization dedicated to building a quality of life community through trust, integrity, and accountability. Community partnerships will shape our priorities here in Kennedale. And we're very proud for that as well. Some of our highlights is our Texas Police Chief Association standards and practices. We've been recognized since 2012. We just recently got recognized it again for the next 4 years. So we'll be good for 2024. I'm very proud of that as well. It's the standards that set not only statewide, but nationally. So we keep up with our policies, our standards, and what the expectations are of our public and our community. We've also done some community events and programs that some of you have noticed. We've had our first National Night Out last week, a week and a half ago. I think we had a great turnout. We anticipate to continue to do that and be a part of the community. We also done active shooter training for City Hall employees, anybody that was involved and wanted to be a part of it or learn some of the things that we do and how we do it and why we do it. We did that. And we also do it for the Kennedale School District. All their employees, all the teachers, all their faculty is welcome. We do it every year before school starts. We also received a $98,000 grant this past year for the 2020 calendar year. That is also what we got our simulator training for, which we have in the police department. We're very proud of that. So we're really starting to use that and bring it to practice. We're also ranked 22nd in a new grant that we're hoping that we'll share literally with the whole city. It's LED traffic speed limit signs. So you'll start seeing them if we get approved with it, which we anticipate we will. Generally, if you're in the top 30, 35, generally you get funded. So we're anticipating that grant to be coming forward. You'll see them on like Dick Price, some of the school zones. So there's no doubt what the speed limit is. And they'll have like little red and blue lights. I mean, something that'll catch your attention and hopefully slow you down. Right. Well, we'll have six of them. So of course, we're going to hit some of the corridors coming into the city, some, high traffic count areas. Police responsibility is a little tricky. That's a lot of information to put in. So I narrowed it down to just a statement, our vision. and it's to provide professional, accountable, and progressive police service in collaboration with our community to ensure a safe place to live, work, and play. That includes quite a bit of stuff. I think for the most part, everybody understands what police work is, but it's also dealing with our public, dealing with our community, and having a one-on-one relationship with them. That's one of the things that we're trying to build coming into this next budget cycle. And we're going to put some emphasis on community relations. Police personnel, we have 21 sworn police officers. That's from the chief all the way down to the last police officer hired. And we all have different stages of actually what our responsibilities are. Of course, the chief and the captain, we're in administrative. We're mainly dealing with policy and procedures. We're dealing with the Texas best practices. And we're making sure we're up to date on what our policies are and what's going on with the nation, dealing with society in general. So a lot of laws are generated based off law enforcement. So there's a lot of things we have to keep up on, annual reports that we have to submit to the state. So our administrative roles change dramatically every time we have legislative, like we are right now. New laws are coming out, and we're going to have to implement those into policy, and we got a couple of them coming. We have 4 sergeants, 3 on patrol. We have 1 sergeant in criminal investigation. He oversees the day-to-day operation on assignments of casework. On general, we've had 727 reports of actual criminal act that's taken place that we had to do an additional investigation on. So when we have 3 that's able to do that, a sergeant and 2 detectives. We have 4 corporals, they're on patrol, and the other 3 sergeants are on patrol. And they do everyday supervision to make sure everything's operating right. We're following our own policies and procedures. We have 2 school resource officers, 1 at the high school, 1 at the junior high. For the most part, they're not assigned to a school, but they go to all of them. But they're normally, that's the 2 busiest schools. We have 3 civilian employees, an animal compliance officer, evidence technician, records clerk, and a part-time receptionist in the front. We also have 2 volunteer officers. They come in, or currently only have 1. I just promoted 1, Mike Hogan behind me. But he came in, he done a lot of reports for us, especially dealing with administrative tasks with the reports that we have to submit to the state. So he helped out a lot on that. The other one helps in criminal investigations. He also helps us with the recognition program. Short-term goals, which is, once again, we're community oriented, and I'm really highlighting what we have done and what we have coming up. But we have a lot of short-term goals, and I'm just going to highlight some of them. Grant funding for equipment and positions. We've been very active with that, and we've been very lucky that the last 5 years, we've reached up to 100,000 each year for equipment. This year, we're going to try to do it for a position for a community resource officer to help us with the homeless, different community outreaches that we have. It's an extremely competitive grant, but we're going to give it a shot and see what we can do. We want to build an understanding and support our community events and programs, and we'll do that just like for the Citizens Police Academy, which will be starting September the 13th. We have the Kennedale Youth Police Academy, which we just completed in June. National Night Out, a week and a half ago. We have the public safety open house that's at the fire department coming in October 16th. What? 23rd. I was close. The 16th is Bark in the Park. Of course, we want to sustain our Texas best practice through the TPCA recognition program. We'll continue to seek grants, funding for the speed limit signs that I was talking about earlier. We're going to tailor our training towards community-oriented policing aspects, crime prevention, going to all the HOA meetings. That way we're interacting with our public. They understand who we are. They see our personality, and hopefully they see us as a person and not necessarily as a uniform. Employ our capital planning for patrol vehicle replacement. Evaluate the staffing levels to keep pace with the community growth and our development that's coming up. If you go out and you look at our community, especially if you go up in the sublet, that area is really booming. And it starts affecting police department right then. We don't have to wait till people start going there. They have equipment, they have other activities that take place that become our responsibility as soon as they get on the ground. So we're experiencing a lot of that growth before anybody else starts seeing any of that activity. Long-term goals and improve and replace current facilities with more efficient floor plan. Talking about a new public safety building. That's very important for us. We have literally outgrown our police department. Just like the fire department, we've been there roughly 35 years. And we slowly grow and we're making adjustments and hopefully making it fit where it's beneficial for all of us. Fire department does the same. But it'll be nice to be able to move into a facility that's up to date, that has the equipment, has the opportunity, and something to be proud of. Continue to develop a strategic plan for future needs, external partnerships to address vulnerable populations, the homeless, mentally ill, for examples. You guys touched on it earlier, but I want to establish a Kennedale Police Department Foundation, which is generally for police. I hate to say only, but that's what it is. And it gives us a capability for people to donate to us. And in return, we're able to give it back to the community in a lot of different ways. They can do it for equipment, outreaches of any sort. We're not necessarily limited by a governmental body that prevents us from doing a community event. And we use those funds for that. Y'all ready for this one? All right. I'm not sure I am. We're looking for a full-time administrative service assistant for our budget increase of about 26,000. I'll touch on that a little bit more, but we're also looking for portable police radios, the radios that we have on our side. Recently, they just updated new technology where we can utilize these radios inside areas that you don't have service for. And we have two of them. One's a high school, the other one's junior high. So our SROs get in there and they have no communications with outside, with police, dispatch, or any other entity in that aspect of it. We'll be able to purchase two of them that have cellular data. So we'll be able to make contact. We have a medical issue. We have a criminal activity taking place. There's hurt, whatever the case is. Those officers then will be able to make contact without having to pick up their phone or go outside or find some type of service to get help.
I come from Mansfield ISD Police Department, where I was a dispatch supervisor. And he's totally correct as far as radios, once you go into those school buildings, there's no contact, none whatsoever. So those are much needed radios.
They are. Well, it was for 4,000 for each one. I just got an update and it's looking like about 2,600 to 2,800 apiece now, so it's dropped a little bit. Also looking for ballistic shields. Normally you'll see them, you know, where there's a big old chunk of steel plates. That's not what I'm asking for. These are more of a soft trauma shield. You can roll them up and we can put them in the car. And if we have any activity that's taking place that we need additional protection, that's where these will come into effect and we'll be able to use. For instance, God forbid we get in a shooting or something like that and we're on a traffic stop, we can pull these out and be able to approach with additional protection. Or if we have something going on in a house or we have some type of activity where we're going to have to make a decision to move forward, this helps protect us even more. They're not that expensive, but it gives a lot of good protection for us. The grant we just received for $98,000 for the simulator. Unfortunately, we're capped at $100,000, so we couldn't get the full package for the simulator training. There's things that we weren't able to get for electives. One of them was a rifle simulator, so we can use an actual true AR-15 version, so we can train with the actual weapon itself. OC container, where we can actually use a simulated OC. And another one is a compressor that we can fill the other equipment that provides it for this. So there's a lot involved in it, but it's very well needed. Assignment pay. Probably not going to go in a lot of detail with this one. There's a lot of transitions I'm wanting to make dealing with personnel. This is going to replace some of our ranking positions. In the long run, this process will save us money 3 to 5 years from now for a small increase now. For instance, right now we have 24-hour service supervision coverage. Doing this assignment pay, we can give someone the authority to act in a supervisor manner. For instance, our corporals, we use them as field training officers, and they continue to get paid on a daily basis for that rank. If we use an assignment pay, we can do it when they actually do the training for additional officers. So if we're training somebody for 4 months, they'll get assignment pay for 4 months, not for 12 months. That makes sense. The biggest cost is we're looking for 3 marked patrol cars. We're looking about $50,000 per car. It's fully outfitted. It comes with everything that we need on it, which is a 2021 Ford Explorers, basically. We're moving from the Tahoes to the Explorers. I like to have a mix between the vehicles. The Fords are roughly $12,000 cheaper than what a Tahoe is. So there's a savings there by itself. But you know, you come into the city, generally, there's a couple of things. First thing you see is either if you come in on the Parkway, you have QT, that area. Generally, hopefully, the next thing you see is probably one of our patrol cars. So having a good image, a good face, and seeing the security of the police and being active, patrol cars are very important, not only for the police department for us to drive, but for the image of the city itself. Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, since we're done, obviously y'all have already seen the 2021 budget. Lakita's already pretty much talked about that, so I'm going to jump over to the comparison part. On the 2021 total budget, it's 2.9 million. 75% personnel, 25% operational cost. Our operational cost is fairly high And the reason why we're mandated by the state to do a lot of reports. I mean, we have reports, annual reports that generally took me about 3 months to get generated. And it just keeps getting worse. We got 3 more coming for 2021. So the operational cost is high because of that. And it takes time. It takes it almost pretty much a full-time person just to deal with that. And give you an example, the Sandra Bland Act, dealing with racial profiling. We have to subcontract that out. That one personnel wouldn't even be able to do that. There's too much analysis that's taking place. It's not just us, it's mandated for the whole region. So we have to outfit that, but there's other data that we have to pull from. And Captain Hogan is going to get to do it this go around. Kind of proud of that. But there's a lot of expense in our operationals, and some of it we just can't, there's no way that we can get out of that. Just like our body cams, we have to have that. We have to have storage to be able to keep it. We're mandated, we have to have a minimum of 90 days. And that's if nothing happened. That's just a regular contact. We had an average of right at a little over 17,000 contacts in 2020. So that's an officer making face-to-face contact. So every one of these contacts, they're all it's audio and video, either on a body cam or inside our cars. And we have to keep all that data. We have a major incident. So we have a homicide and we have 10 officers show up. That's 10 videos, body cams. Then we got all the patrol cars. We have to have that. We have a camera that's looking after the prisoner. We have to document that. All that's got to be sent to the DA's office. So there's a lot of things that goes on a lot of our budgeting, and it is costly. The 21-22 budget, as you can tell, it's about $83,000 more. Some of that, hopefully, I'm going to say it's personnel costs with salaries, which I'm very proud of, and thank you for that. Very grateful. So that's a little bit of the cost with that. The total budget with all the programs that we want to implement is 3.2, which is a little bit higher. And I'm very grateful for that as well. The school resource officer for the 2021 is 208. It's going up a little over $2,000 for that, for the whole process. To go back with the 21-22 budget I'm asking for additional personnel for an administrative assistant. With all the reports and administrative things that we do, I'm asking for help with that. We've had the receptionists for 20 years, and they've been part-time for 20 years. And we have massively increased our services to our public. And we're needing to do that again. When I was the captain, I've done a lot of administrative duties. Quite honestly, I just don't feel like I should have been doing. I feel that my expertise and my training, I could have provided to my officers a lot better than making a data sheet, Excel spreadsheet, or putting a report together that's not that much value to it, but it's something that we can need and we need to upkeep with. Captain Hogan has extensive background in training, and I want to utilize his expertise for exactly what we need for the police department and more importantly for our community. There's a lot of things that we can make better just by making a little bit of adjustments. With my budget, even though it's an increase, I've also dropped a lot of the line item budgets. $1,000 here. The animal control budget, I dropped 25 grand. That's a big drop. I was able to get a soon contract with Everman Animal Services to be able to house our animals. Haven't got a true price yet from him, but Fort Worth is charging us $463 per animal. So if we have a cat that has 10 kittens, it is very much. So, and there's other options that we seek out, and we do, and we save a lot of money by doing that. But also there's times that we're limited. If Fort Worth's full, they're going to charge us $463. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. I believe everyone's going to be under 200 per animal. And that's a one-time fee. If it's there for one day or if it's there for 30 days. Fort Worth, after the 463, we add another $40 the next day. Then another $40 the next day. Another $40 the next day, and it just continues. So I've been able to save some money, probably on the long haul, to be quite honest with you. And this full-time administrative assistant would truly help us be able to serve our community even more. Honestly, we send an animal to Fort Worth. A lot of people can't afford to get their dog out. It just, not a whole lot of people come up with $450. Ultimately, they lose their animal. So going to Everman is really helping us out a lot in that concept. If it's under $200 and you really love your pet, generally you can come up with 200 somewhere. So it's a benefit for them as well. I'm done.
Okay, well, thank you. That's a lot of information. Gary, we'll start with you this time.
I have no questions.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thank you.
Jan?
Yes, I agree. To all of our first responders, it is, as a citizen, you just don't think about it. I remember when I first interviewed some of the firemen, I'm like, you do all of that? You just don't think about it. So yeah, thank you very much. And thank you both for being fine leaders, really fine leaders. The school resource officers, does KISD supplement that?
Yes, it's a 50% match for both. I believe that's already with that, correct? Yeah. So that's our cost.
Okay. So that's our cost. And let's see.
That's vehicles, fuel, everything associated with the officer.
Okay.
It's all split.
And I'll be keeping my fingers crossed and hands together for the community resource grant. And is there a time frame that you'll know about that, or is there a?
We're in the process, the first stage of the grant. We're looking to be due about February, mid-February.
Okay.
So we're not going to know about it most likely until October of 2022.
Gotcha.
So it's a long process with it, but and it's an extremely competitive grant. When we first got the SRO program, that's where we got the funds for it. It paid for the first 3 years for the salary.
Okay.
Of course, after the 3 years, we picked the salary up.
So my question on there was somewhere you had the first year, I think it was the 9,800 of the assignment pay. Oh, yeah, the assignment pay. 3 or 4 years down the road, you said that would save us. Is that 9,800 a one time, or I would assume that'd be an annual?
It'll be an annual.
Annual.
Yes. Without going in great detail, and I don't have the pay scale in front of me.
I understand. Yeah, it's not needed. I was just.
One corporal will assume that 10 grand. And we have 4.
I do have some questions on the patrol cars, but I don't really want to go into it at the moment. I just want to think about what we currently have.
Okay.
The situation that we're in with all the cars, kind of where we're at and where these 3 extras fit into that.
Okay.
And I appreciate all the work that you've done on the budget, specifically with the line items and looking at every single line item and moving to different programs to not only help financially, but to help the community.
Okay, James?
All right, there's just a few questions. I hate to say this, but I'm the animal lover in the room, so I'm gonna ask, does Everman have a catch and release program?
It's a no-kill shelter, either one of them.
I'm good with that. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Unless it's going in as an injured to begin with.
Well, if they're going by 501 West Third Street, there's a cat in the front yard and there's a cat in the backyard. That's Creamy, that's Bob, leave them alone, they're mine. Also, about the police cars, I will go into detail on that. Are we talking, you said Ford Explorers, correct?
Yes.
What is the difference in price? Because I'm stupid when it comes to cars. I'll be the first to say it. What's the difference between an SUV and an actual car?
Well, right now, currently, there's no sedans. There's no police model for a sedan.
The Crown Vic isn't in operation anymore?
No, sir, it's been gone about 10 years.
Again, stupid. I know how they turn on and I know how they go. That's
I do like them though.
Yeah, exactly. And I know how the radio works too. But so the Crown Vic is no longer there. So everyone has just gone to SUVs.
Dodge still has their Charger.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of Dodge. I'm not a fan of the Charger either. Not as a police vehicle.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit what we need here. If we were out and we had 20 miles of interstate, that might be a totally different circumstance. The surroundings are for us is smaller.
Mhm.
The Ford Explorer has better fuel mileage. It's a smaller USV. It's not as big as a Tahoe. Once again, the fuel mileage is different. It's not a whole lot different. The biggest cost difference is the actual cost of the vehicle itself.
Yeah. And also as the environmentalist in the room, are we looking at maybe possibly green vehicles?
There are some grants out with that. We're just now starting to be able to get in to be able to explore it. I wish I can tell you we will have one for this year, but it's not going to happen.
Gotcha.
But we are exploring for grants for them.
Okay. Again, not gonna go into your personnel. I think I'm good. I did hear something really quickly. October 16th, October 23rd, Bark in the Park, and there's an open house. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't hear about those, so I think I'll be looking into that. And that goes into the continuing with the events and programs that the police department is doing.
Yes, sir.
Now, just out of curiosity, is the Bark in the Park like an extension of the National Night Out?
No, that's
It's
not.
completely
two-
different.
Two totally different things.
Okay,
In the past, we've always had it at Sonora Park.
Yeah.
This year, we're moving it to Town Center.
okay, cool. Yeah, I'm in favor of the Everman thing. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, and then Julie? Okay, I'm going to go back to the patrol cars, a question on that, because we're not asking for any additional personnel for those, so I'm presuming this is a replacement
They
for
are.
existing.
Right.
Okay.
Currently, we have 4 2016. Actually, we have 6 2016 model vehicles. 3 of them are in need of replacement. I don't feel that it gives the image that we want to portray. So I think in that concept of it by itself is very important. Not include the maintenance on it continues to rise each time we drive it. Literally, we just spent almost $2,000 getting them up so we can get them inspected. And I don't see that changing this next budget year. So we're going to be paying for it one way or the other. Either we can look good driving them or we can drive something, and have Beards come by and pick us up later.
Okay, and then I was trying to find it in last year's, but I couldn't. I know I've got it somewhere, but the capital replacement chart that goes through 5 years.
Yeah.
Were these 3 vehicles listed in there for this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And then just a note, on your external partnership item that you had under long-term goals. When I attended the Tarrant County Mayor's Council meeting this past month, this month, that was one of the presentations that they gave was the partnership, the Tarrant County Mental Health Jail Diversion Center. And I've got the packet here. It was just a lot of good information.
Yes, absolutely.
And if that's something as we move forward, as they move forward and coordinate with your department, that would be something really good for you to share probably
Absolutely.
at one of the council meetings.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any final questions for him? No, thank you so much. Okay, and then the last finance department, I think she's doing hers and then a wrap up for all the others.
Yes, I won't take very long at all. These departments that I'm going to go over, we don't spend a lot. So we're not asking for much. So finance department, I'm going to go through this quickly. Of course, you know what the function is. We guide all the financial programs for the city, create the budget, and also direct the city's annual audit and do our best to sustain our bond ratings. Finance responsibilities, budgeting, auditing, reporting, AP, AR, payroll, treasury, and debt management. Here's a look at our current personnel. We have the finance director, financial analyst position, accounting technician, a customer service representative that is part-time. That is our only part-time employee in finance. Full-time municipal court administrator, and finance also manages the city's IT contract with NetGenius. Some short-term and long-term goals. Short-term goal is to issue the 6 million CO debt issuance next month. A previous council had discussed implementing a street maintenance fee because if you notice, our street fund is somewhat diminishing because it's being funded by franchise fees that have decreased significantly. And because we have personnel being paid out of that fund, we gotta figure something out in the near future. So I'm not sure if that's something that this council still wants to pursue, but it's certainly something I'd be happy to come in later, talk with y'all about kind of what that looks like. Another short-term goal would be a 2021 bond election. I'd be happy to facilitate if that's something that the council is interested in doing. Of course, you know, we have a long list of capital projects and things like that. I know public safety is mentioned getting a new facility for quite some time. And we have just a lot of street projects outstanding as well. So that would be something that we could talk about in the short term. Long term, we have the opportunity to issue an additional 8 million in CO debt in 2024. And that is debt that we can secure without raising the debt tax rate as well. So that would kind of be a given, you know, kind of like the same way that we're doing the 6 million this year. And then the next long-term goal would be to hire a new audit firm. Typically, I like to see those switch out every 5 years. And when BKD audits our fiscal year 22 audit, they will have been here 5 years. So sometime prior to that, we'll want to probably put out an RFQ to start looking for a different audit firm. Okay, identified needs. I almost didn't put this in here, but it's something that I would like to see us do in the next few years, not the immediate future. Right now, we're using STW for our financial software, and we actually probably have about 2 more years left in that contract. And I would like to see us think about moving out of that. There's better software out there. STW is okay. It's not my favorite. Actually, it's my first time using it coming here to Kennedale. There are just better options out there. We're not missing a beat right now with our financial software. I mean, STW does the things that we needed to do, but there are just quicker and better ways to get to the information. So my staff, Debbie and Tanisha, they do a great job of running reports, and sometimes you have to run 4 or 5 reports to get the answer you want, but there is financial software out there that can run better. I particularly love Tyler Technology software. There's a system called Encode, and they would be just perfect for Kennedale. But, you know, upgrading financial software affects pretty much every department, and it's very expensive. So it's probably going to be upwards of about $130,000 whenever we do decide to do that. But that's just something I want to just put out there. I'm not recommending it in this budget because we have other things that are better prioritized. So our budget is pretty cut and dry. Our fiscal year 21 budget, $464,000. We're projecting $451,000, and for next year, $483,000. The only increase is, I believe, the audit. Okay. Our auditor actually increased our fee, I believe about $11,000 this year. And that was just kind of a normal type of inflation thing. But, you know, like I said, we'll have this audit, and then we'll have 1 additional year with BKD, hopefully. So other than that, it's just regular personnel. All of our staffing budget comes out of that. Okay, I'm gonna briefly just move on and touch on all of these. 1 second. One second. So city manager's budget, the amended budget was $321,000. Projected $573,000. Most of that is going to be due to the city manager contract ending, kind of bumped us up there. And then, of course, for fiscal year 22, we'll go back pretty much to baseline. And that is going to be totally, you know, dependent upon the city manager position and their qualifications and what the council deems that they want to pay that person. So. Community development, their expenditures this year were $412,959, projected $609,000. We had quite a bit of activity in community development by the way of, you know, new development coming in and different developer fees that the developers pay, but in turn we owe to Safe Built. So that is the reason why that is up, but you'll also see the revenue up as well, as I mentioned before. And for next year, we're kind of back to our baseline, plus, whatever step plans or salary pieces are in here, as well as special services. We allowed, I think, an extra of anywhere between 10 to 20,000 for special services, and that's also for Safe Built. It's just built in there. If we need it, we'll spend it. If we don't, it'll still be there and it'll go to the fund balance. So for human resources, not much there. 135,000 is what we budgeted. That is a one-person department. So you got just your human resources director and whatever programs and services that department offers. Projected expenditure is 133,000, and then for fiscal year 22 proposed is 118. Now, that 141,000 does not include new programs. The director of that department, before she departed, she did ask for new programs. So you'll see that was in the first presentation that I did. They're actually listed there. She did ask for increased training and seminar dollars and some staffing recognition programs for next year. Our streets budget, we budgeted 1,063,216. We're projecting 1,024,946. And the proposed, this is what the Public Works Director submitted, 1.4 million. This does not include the list of new programs that they submitted. The increase from the 1 million to the 1.4 is mostly maintenance and engineering. As you're aware, we have a contract with Shield Engineering, and we do a lot of business with Shield. So I don't know exactly what projects was on the table for fiscal year 22. That's something that Leslie and I will be taking a closer look at within the next week or so. But as it stands now, we're proposing 1.4 million for next year. And of course, we still have staff. Again, we have staff in streets as well. There is an increased transfer out to the capital replacement fund budgeted for this year. And you're going to actually see that in all of the major funds, because it goes back to the vehicle thing. The funds, our major funds have not been contributing enough annually to that fund to take care of the lease requirement that is owed to Enterprise. And so next Tuesday, I will be talking to you about a solution for that and what that looks like. I can just prepare you. It's probably going to cost us to bleed out a little bit up front in order to make things right moving forward, because actually what we've done is we've overextended ourselves on our leases. We owe more than what we've been able to contribute to that fund. And this is the last year that we're kind of able to do that without that fund going into the negative. And we don't want to see that. So next Tuesday, I'll, as a part of Leslie's proposed, we are going to have a solution for that. The streets vehicles, since street is technically its own fund right now, even that fund has not contributed enough to cover their leases. So, for example, I can tell you the general fund has only been contributing about maybe 58,000 a year. And that doesn't cover half of what we pay out for, I don't think that even covers police vehicles. So, that's something that we'll have to make some decisions about. But I will be presenting you with at least some options to look at. So before I end, there are just a few things I want to touch on. I'm not going to keep you all night here. Just some really important things that I wanted to touch on. We talked about our fund balance projection, okay? So we're looking to be in a pretty good place for this year, ending at about 21% on our fund balance, right? But next year, if you look at our revenue versus our expenditures, so when I first presented this to you, I told you that we're looking at bringing in 7.8 million in revenue, okay? We're looking at, if you add all new programs, we're looking at 9.4 million in expenditures, okay? Doesn't take a mathematician to know that doesn't add up, right? So obviously, we don't want to put ourselves in a situation to where we're drawing down our fund balance $1.5 million. You know, we don't want to do that. So I'm just preparing you that there will be some hard decisions that we'll have to make. You know, that's why we're starting the conversation next Tuesday with the proposed budget, telling you what our ideas are, and giving you those extra 2 weeks that we can call meetings to kind of hash it out, because that's what it's going to take. If you look at that list, and that's why I want you to keep up with your PowerPoint. If you look at the list of revenue for next year, I have listed 4.895 million for property tax revenue next year. Okay, if you look at what we're going to receive this year, that's only about $90,000 more. Okay, that is at our current tax rate. That is at 77 cents. Okay, if you lower that to the no new revenue rate, that 4.895 is going to drop to 4.748. So just kind of keep in mind, the revenue that we talked about tonight places us with the same tax rate that we have now, even with a 5% increase in AV. Okay, so we got a 5% increase, that's great. Again, we have some decisions to make about what we want to include, how much of a tax rate. Do we want to see an increase? Do we want to see a decrease? Do we want to see it remain the same? And what new programs can we realistically add in this budget to cut through that 1.5 million? We don't want to recommend a budget with the 1.5 million drawdown. So we want to take a close look at what can we realistically include. I know everybody has their wish list, and these are things that everybody feels like they need, but we really still have to prioritize. So let's see what else. And the only other thing I wanted to leave you with is that I hope that we'll get money from the American Recovery Act. That's something that is coming down the pike. I don't know when. I know we should qualify to get some funding. I've heard things in the wind about how much we may get. I don't know what we're going to get. I don't want to get up here and say that. But, and of course, whatever the city receives, you know, we can't budget for it. But if we do receive anything, it could help us significantly. But that will depend very strictly on what the state designates we can spend that money on. What I'm hoping for is that we can spend it to reduce expenses in our general fund, because that's what happened with the last allocation. If that happens again, we could be in a pretty good place. But just things to consider. And I said that was my last thing, but I have one more. Both of the chiefs got up and talked to you and thanked you for the step plan placement that we did last year, so that our firefighters and our policemen are closer to market and we're not losing them to Mansfield or one of the neighboring cities. The expenditures as they stand right now include those plans and continue those plans. And I know that will probably be one of the last things Leslie would want to consider moving out of the budget, if at all possible. Because if we remove step plans this year, next year, instead of us being at 92%, we're back down again, and it's going to cost a big jump to get up again. Okay, so expenditures as they stand, include them, and I think we all pretty much want to see that continue, because we don't want to lose our public safety folks. So that is really all I have, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, Jan?
Just have one question because at this point, thank you for presenting the other departments along with yours. And thank you for all your help getting this together. Short-staffed. I really, really appreciate all of you doing that. So have a lot to absorb because we just received all of this information tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's to take it home and, crunch numbers and come up with questions, right?
Right.
So, and then wait and see what you propose then on Tuesday. So I just had a question on the page 31 that you referred me to, the fire department revenue. It says in here that it's a quarterly, those two pieces, the Tarrant County contribution, it says it's per quarter so the amount that's in the column, is that the total or?
That's the total annual amount.
Okay, that is. Okay, so it's, but it's only received
Once quarterly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted,
Yeah, that's the annual amount.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Gary?
No question, just a comment. I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for everything that you're doing for the city and myself, I'm very proud of you guys. So for hanging in there, I know it's shorthanded and I know you're having to do extra work and just appreciate you guys so much for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Julie? Okay, James?
Just a couple questions, that's all. So in the beginning, you said to hire a new auditing firm. We're currently in a contract with them, correct?
We are.
Okay. Do they have a set price in that contract? Or is it including a step price?
They had a set price for the first 3 years. And then year 4 and year 5 are just kind of based on,
Market rate. Oh, boy. Okay.
So
Then I would agree with you on that. Also, the software, how old is the current software that we're using?
I don't know how long the city has used STW. Leslie, do you know?
It's been here a long time.
It's been here a long time, yeah.
About how long?
Thank you.
Please, because if it's over 10 years, I agree with you. We need something new.
No, it's definitely been over 10.
How
Yeah,
long?
I'm sure.
In your identifying needs, it says $130,000 expense being delayed. How long has it been delayed?
Well, I wouldn't look at it like that. I mean, it's really a preference thing. Some finance directors that have been here prior to me may have been satisfied with STW. Well, that's probably because they haven't used anything else. And they may not be aware of really what softwares are capable of. And so I don't want to say that we're missing anything. I just would like to see us be able to take it to the next level for more efficiency, because I'm not planning on adding staff anytime soon, and it could just help us, so much better with our timing.
Okay.
And reporting.
Yeah, especially if it's older than 10 years. One last question, and you may not be able to speak to this, and that's okay if you cannot. In going over all the property taxes that you just went through and everything like that, this is kind of a bold-faced question you'd be asking. Are you actually advocating for a tax hike?
I'm at this
Personally?
point, I'm not advocating for anything. We're still kind of mulling over the numbers and seeing what it's going to look like. So,
But would a tax hike help?
I'm sorry.
Would a tax hike help?
Well, it's a tax increase is always going to bring in more revenue. So,
Of course. I think that's it.
Okay. All right, and I guess maybe next Tuesday we'll have more information as far as the street department and the proposed dollar amount, how much more that it went up
We will.
on that. Okay.
Yeah, next Tuesday will be a long one.
Okay, yes, it sure will. And just for, I guess, clarity on the calendar, the budget calendar, it says for next Tuesday, August the 17th, that our meeting begins at 5:30. I believe that has been changed today.
Okay.
Right, I just changed that today. We're gonna begin at 4:30 with interviews of the council applicants. So I don't expect for staff to be required before 5:30 because
Okay.
But as far as posting the meeting, it will be posted as 4:30
Okay.
with the anticipated, I guess, workshop part to begin at 5:30
Okay.
or executive session, whatever we need to do at that point in time.
I'll be here.
Okay, well, thank you for all of your work on the budget and continuing work on it, and your staff and all the department heads. And Leslie, there's a lot of work that goes into these, and especially this year is especially hard. You're having to do double and triple duty. So
Thank you.
it's all appreciated. Does any other council person have any comments for her? No?
I would like to say thank you for putting this together. It was very thorough.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jan?
I think you already know this. I think you and staff, everyone already knows this, but what the citizens have asked for is for no more tax increase. They're hurting. They've had 2 maximum tax increases over the past 2 years. They're hurting. And so whatever, as you're digging through this, to take that into consideration as you present to us, I would just ask for you to keep that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think Leslie and I have heard kind of loud and clear what, you guys are wanting, and we're going to do our best to make it fit. We have that 1.5 million gap in between, and we have to figure it out. We have to have a little give and take on both sides. But yeah, we definitely heard that you guys don't want to increase, and we're going to do our best.
I think what I'm hearing so much from so many people is that there's so many ways to do this. It's, people are coming together, they're volunteering, they want to contribute, and they'll clean the senior citizen center for us. I mean, there's so many different ways that can just cut here and there, and it all adds up to so much. So I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Lakita. And Leslie, do you have anything additional?
I just thank you to council and to staff for all of your work on this tonight.
Okay, well, there's no further business to attend to. I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. The time has passed for that to be turned in.
Is that a protocol for us if someone turns in something late?
It's been posted, and I even made an attempt this time to make that notation at the beginning of the meeting that everyone should have had that turned in.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All in favor, we are adjourned. 8:31 p.m.
Yeah. I don't expect that we'll. I don't expect there to be. I can't say.
I can tell you because I've already sent an email.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
But I guess in the future, if you need this is going to be questions. You know what I'm saying?
Basically like the police cars. So
I mean, I would have said that